Yes, I can see
Okay,
your screen,
thank
sir.
you. Thank you. All right, today I want to talk briefly about unlocking the potentials in agriculture with focus on youth involvement, based on the title of the summit. In general, I want to talk about, uh, first of all, four thematic areas that remains unexplored, that still present a lot of opportunities for youth to engage, not just in Nigeria, but even in Africa as a whole. The first area I want to talk about relates to the local productivity area, local production optimization. The second area, I'll focus a little bit more on the value addition component, information delivery as the third, and then digitization as the fourth one. My goal is also to use a number of case studies as we see young people in Nigeria and also in other places uh, taking advantage of a lot of these opportunities that still exist within the agricultural value chain as a whole. Um, so, first, I want to talk about local production optimization. I was hearing on the last speaker talking about a lot of good production that is going on in Africa, which is true. I could also maybe pick up from that conversation that yesterday, a lot of the lectures also focus on that. The number of crops that we're doing well in terms of production, there are a number of them that we need to do better. Uh, but when we still look at it from the global perspective, there is still so much opportunities because of a lot of gap that still exists uh, between what is possible in terms of the potential and what we actually see. In order to drive that point, I want to talk about how do we close the yield gap? Um, how do we learn from what is possible? How do we unlock a lot of the potentials? For instance, a study carried out by McKinsey about 2 years ago, they came to the conclusion that Africa as a whole right now, we could actually multiply our productivity by 3 if we can just do some level of intensification in agricultural productions. And that study highlights key areas that remain unexplored. Uh, for instance, they look at the current production in terms of the millions of tons of cereal and grain production, put it around 320. But in terms of the potential, we could double the yield. For instance, the yield we are getting from maize, or even from cassava, or from oil palm, or even from plantain, as we went through in the last session, could be much more. Maybe just to give a context to that, to put it into context. Let's talk about maize. The average yield of maize for farmers in Nigeria, it hovers around 2 tons per hectare. But the average yield of an average farmer in Illinois, in US, in a number of states in the US, it hovers around 13 to 14 tons. So we are talking about 6, 7x in terms of the difference. And why is this the case? Why is this the case? Because of input accessibility, because of the genetics of the seed we're using, and so many other factors that I believe we can talk a little bit into. And there are so many other opportunities as well within that. Maybe just to give us some sort of maybe more context. Can you guys hear me?
You
Hello?
went off for a while. We
Yes,
can
sir, I
hear
can
you
hear
Okay.
you,
now.
sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So if you look at this value chain, this is just a value chains of grain productions as a whole. Each of things in this node, for instance, whether let's just talk about input to start with. A lot of potential that lies on it, whether in terms of research and development on input, whether in terms of the land, whether in terms of the water, in terms of the seed, fertilizers. There's so much opportunity that still remains. So let me put it into perspective. I want to tell the story of Ethiopia. Ethiopia is one of the countries that is doing relatively well when it's come to agricultural productions in Africa. For instance, they have the highest per capita GDP growth rate in Africa over the last 20 years. And one of the crops that Ethiopia is doing well is wheat production. As we can see, right now, they are the largest producer of wheat in the South Sub-Saharan Africa. Compared to Nigeria, we import wheat a lot. A lot of our environment is not even suited for wheat production. But I'm giving an example of Ethiopia to make a point. Just follow with me. So they are doing well. They are producing more. And if you look at their production over the last 20 years, it's been increasing over the year, increasing from something as low as 1,000 metric tons in the 2000. Now they are over 5,000 million metric tons. But remember the chart that I showed about the value chain as a whole? If we just zoom into that and look at wheat value chain in Ethiopia, it will look like something like this. So we are talking of a case of a country that is doing relatively okay, that it's maybe doing well in terms of the wheat value chain as a whole. But if you look at some of those points, for instance, let's look at the water, which now let's talk about irrigation. Less than 1% of wheat production in Ethiopia is still irrigated. Same thing in Nigeria. Same thing when we look at different crops. Whether you're talking about even tomato production, whether we are talking about maize production, whether we're talking about, and that's huge opportunities. That is whole sector, irrigation, water availability, that remain unexplored, that present a lot of opportunities for young people to plug into, that can unleash a lot of potential within agriculture in Nigeria. The same thing when you look at seed. Let's just look at seed alone. Ethiopia, that is doing relatively well, they only get improved seed once in 17 years. You can imagine where an average farmer in Washington State or get improved seed almost every 2 years, whereby they're able to maybe work help unleash the potential of agriculture as a whole. So the same thing if you look across the value chain, if you look at processing, if we look at the production, if you look at the market, a lot of opportunity that remain unexplored. Because of time, I won't spend too much time on, I want to give maybe case studies. So in the last 7 years, we've had a lot of young people recognizing some of these opportunities and plugging into it. But the challenge is we need more. And I'm hoping maybe I get to a level in this talk whereby I can talk about some major changes and how individually we can take advantage of some of these opportunities. So, one example of a company that identified maybe one of these elements in the value chain that I talked about is Hello Tractor. I'm sure most of us will be aware of Hello Tractor, which is a company that basically connects tractor owners to smallholder farmers through their tractor sharing applications. And doing well, especially in Kenya. But when you look at that idea, that's just idea in terms of how do we make more tractor available to farmers. We have some farms that we set up in Osun State. Every time we want to set up new farms, I look for, we still don't have access to them. Farmers still don't have access to the tractors. For instance, I look at the need within that sector, just that alone, making tractor available. Nigeria needs at least 2 ordering companies when it comes to access to tractor, when it comes to access to implement, access to tools that farmers need to be able to unleash the potential within their soil, within their land as a whole. So as I mentioned in terms of value chain, the same thing you can see. Maybe let me talk about example of one more complaint. There's cow tribe in Ghana. I won't talk too much about that too. Another, it's most of us know about drones use. Femi Adekoya, it's one of the people that is also trying to pioneer that. But what I want to address a little bit, maybe talk a little bit more about how immense the need and how much of that is still needed in order to make a lot of the services I talked about in this chain, whether it's how do we help with fertilization, service provision for farmers on fertilizer alone or on pesticides. Then we need orders and orders of small companies that can grow to become bigger like that, remotely meet the need. If you look also a little bit, there is case study of also some young people also plugging into the processing component or the storage component of it, like EcoTutu as well. Within that areas of storage, within the areas of preservation, the need is so immense. I'm sure most of us are aware that more than 50% of tomato produced in Nigeria go to waste. The same thing as so many other crops, especially during rainy season. The need is enormous. The question is, what are some of the skill sets? What are some of the critical issues that we need to think about or we need to put into consideration to have hundreds or if not even thousands of companies like this unleashing the potentials that we have in agriculture in Nigeria? Before I talk about some of those points, the second point also is on the value additions. So aside solving the production problem, right? Aside optimizing the local production, aside the storage of it, there is also so much potential within the areas of value addition. How do you add value? How do you take something that is already produced and put some sort of organization more into it and add value to it? Before I give maybe examples of young people also plugging into that, let me share some data. Cocoa production or cotton production or raw cashew production. When we look at the percentage of how those crops are exported out of Africa, 74% of cocoa are exported raw. It's 70% for cotton, and it is 95% for cashew. 95%. We just export them raw. Whereas the value is in the processing, where the job creations occurs is in the processing, is in how we add more value to it. For instance, let's talk about the cocoa a little bit. In terms of the production of cocoa in the whole world, we call them the big four, and that is Nigeria, that is Ghana, and that is Cote d'Ivoire, and that is Cameroon. We're responsible for almost 74% of the global production of cocoa. But when you look at where the real value is, so one of it is the grinders, right? Cocoa grinding system, whereby you could have a lot of thousands of small scale companies that do that. But when you look at where they are in Netherlands. Right? So these are all areas whereby small things that we can actually plug into and create more value across board. So value addition presents a lot of opportunities that remains unexplored. But we see a lot of people also, a lot of young people plugging into that, realizing that. But my challenge to all of us is that we need hundreds, if not even thousands of complaints like that. For instance, Real Fruit is an example of one. A complaint established by Affion Williams, a very young woman that came all the way also from South Africa and started it. It's just focusing on plantain chips. So I start just plantain chips. So just by adding value on just plantain chips alone, she was able to do something substantial within that. But there's still more and more like that. So you can imagine now doing the same thing along the value chain of sweet potato, along the value chain of even cassava, along the value chain of sweet corn, along the value chain of so many other crops that we are able to grow successfully in Nigeria. So the opportunity is just enormous. The third thematic areas I want to talk about briefly is in the area of information delivery. Information delivery is a key component of it. And it's just so many. For instance, information delivery to farmers. Farmers still don't have enough information about what or when and how to go about productions well. Input suppliers, credit and finance, whether it's food processor, whether it's traders and retailers, whether it's consumers that need quality information about food, where their food comes from, and so many other things like that, that we can, a lot of ideas. So the idea is, it's not about doing all of these things. It's just about focusing, identify one. For instance, let's give an example now for farmers, right? For instance, farmers need to be well aware about extreme weather risk on their farm, right? Whether it's also fertilizer planning, whether it's pest and disease management alert. So many things whereby you could further develop, you can create value. The same thing, input suppliers. There are certain information that they need. Marketing assets or marketing logistics is a major thing that companies are willing to pay money for to be able to get. But so having small companies that want to identify these small areas and develop a sustainable business out of it are key areas where a lot of potential can be unleashed, where a lot of potential can actually be turned into value within agriculture. Credit and finance is another one. I know we have a number of companies also that started within that area, but there's still so much that needs to be done, whether it's index-based insurance for farmers. As we see the impact of climate change, I'm sure most of us are following the news with flooding all around multiple states. So there are just so many opportunities that remain on tap that we still need more people plugging into it in solving a lot of challenges that we still have within the sector. So I don't want to waste time talking about different other complaints, young people that are also plugging into that and creating value and creating complaints out of it. Digitization, that's another thing. There's so much that we can still do within the concept of digitization, of digitizing agriculture. There's so much potentials that young people can still plug into, whether it's on the mobile payment, whether it's e-mechanization, whether it's the farmer information systems. There's just so much opportunity within all of these areas that can remain areas of opportunity for young people, where young people can involve in bringing about more solutions to a lot of the challenges that we have. So, as we're thinking, if you are someone thinking about digitization, you're talking about information delivery, there are core things that I might want to drive your attention to, right? You don't want to start with doing everything. It's just about choosing one area. Whether what you want to focus on is on monitoring. I know of tens of complaints in the US that their job is, all they focus on is on monitoring, but not into details, and also coming out with a business model that works for you. Whether your area you want to choose is automation, or whether it's areas of precision, whether it's area of compliance, whether it's area of traceability or centralization, or different things that can happen that where you can actually deploy technology that are available right now create a business or to create a company that solve more problems and create more values in the long run. So before I close, I want to talk about what needs to be in place, right, to be able to take advantage of a lot of these massive opportunities that still exist within the area of agriculture in Nigeria. So I want to split that into two. I want to split that conversation into two. So there are so many things that need to take place among ourselves as young people. There's some mindset changing. I'm glad that the previous speaker also touched on some of these things. But there are some other things also that need to take place from the government. And if government do all this happen, first of all, let me talk about what needs to take place in terms of the mindset changing that needs to take place from the young people. Number one, developing investability mindset. Great complaints are investable complaints. I don't know how to repeat that more. Investable complaints. So, which means there is need for deep understanding of the core principles of business development and investment. I've had interactions with so many people, a lot of young people. It's a missing piece in our educational system. How do you develop, how do you make your business investable? It's a missing piece. A lot of time, for instance, if you want to make your business investable, that means you need to have a good business model. That's just one. You need to have a very good record-keeping systems. I'm glad that the last speaker also touched on that. Without record keeping, there is no way you can make your business investable. People can only know what is going on in your farm, whether you are making profit or not, when there is record of how you go about the business. So record keeping is a key component of developing that investability mindset. And the other also is knowing how investment works, knowing the different categories of investment, knowing for instance, when I talk to people generally, when you think about investment, the only thing people think about is loan. And loan is only one form of it. Loan is actually just loan, it's not an investment. For some reason, we misinterpret it for that. So having a deep understanding of core principles of business development is key component of how you develop a business. All of these examples that I've given, they are people that understand this and put them into practice from day one, of whether even when you are still at ideas level, that put it into consideration. The second thing that needs to happen that is very important is value generation focus. You have to become somebody that focuses on delivering value. For some reason, there is a mismatch in our understanding of business, whereby we usually think business exists to make money. So when you ask an average person, especially in my own interaction, I might be wrong, please, I would love to hear your own experience, your own ideas on this. But from my own interaction with a lot of young people, we think business exists to make money, but that's not really true. Business exists to solve problems. The purpose of business is to solve problems, but the sustainability of the business, how that now gets rewarded. The process of that getting rewarded is where the money making comes from. So if you have an idea, you must have an in-depth understanding of the problem you are solving. And that's just one component. If there is focus on you are generating value, which means you are solving a problem, whether you are making something easier, or whether you are making something smarter, or whether you are making something faster, or whether you are making something cheaper, or whether you are making something better, whichever way it is. If there is a focus on that, there is a way, although there are some other things also that need to be in place, that automatically bring value back to you in terms of money. So having a deep understanding of how of the true source of wealth and value creation is very important. It's a mindset change that needs to happen. It's a mindset change that is very crucial for us to build the companies that can become intergenerational. For us to be able to get to a level whereby we build companies that shake the world, that define the world. For us to build companies that become global companies. Value generation. For instance, I'm talking to you through a computer, Dell or something, made by a company that focus on that idea of how do we solve this problem. My slide was made with a company that just started just about 3 or 4 years ago, called Canva. They figure out a problem. People have design challenges. We don't have enough graphic designer. Can we simplify this process? Can we use technology to simplify this process in such a way that everyday man can become a graphic designer within a minute? And they focus on that. When you follow that company, you will see every month they're always improving something. They're always improving something. They will always want to make life easier for their clients. Because there is a focus on that value generation. If there is a focus on that, it's a mindset that needs to happen. Because of time, and I won't spend time on this. I think the last speaker touched much on this as well. Having a long-term mindset is crucial. You learning how to build structure for a long time. Changing this mindset of just I want to make quick money to building something that lasts. Having a long-term mindset is very crucial for us to be able to achieve any of these potential that we talked about. A long-term mindset, whereby at least if you can't even think ahead of time, at least start with a 5-year plan. A 5-year. What do you see this? It doesn't matter how small. So let me come back a little bit on that. So there's another mindset that we usually think something have to be super big for it to be worth doing. No, it doesn't. I know so many companies, actually, hundreds of companies, at least in the US, that I know actually, that all they do is cleaning, and they build investable business, just helping people clean their offices, clean their houses. I know at least one company that have more than 100 people employed within that just simple idea of cleaning. But they do it with a business mindset, with value generation, whereby they have plan of how that company is going to grow from one level to another. Long-term mindset from day one. These are crucial mindset change that can help us unlock a lot of the potential that still exists within the agribusiness. I showed the first chart, the value chain to tell that the opportunities are endless. Whether you are staying with production, or you are staying with processing, or you are staying with logistics, you are staying with, because the problem and the challenges are enormous in Nigeria, that means the opportunity also are enormous. The question is, having understanding of these key principles as you choose your own area that you want to focus on. It's crucial. The last thing I'm going to talk about, because I need to wrap up and I still want to also have opportunity for question and answer and back and forth, is having a collaborative mindset. This is a key mindset change that is important. You can't do business alone. It's not possible. Developing collaborative mindset is crucial for success in business. Developing collaborative mindset is crucial for success in business. There is no other way around it. There is no shortcut to that. Developing collaborative mindset, learning how to work with others. If you want to be a leader, you have to learn how to work with others. And if you want to be a successful business person, you have to be a leader. So whether it's working with your co-workers, whether it's recruiting partners, whether it's working with suppliers, collaborative mindset, it's crucial. So now on the government, I will put the government part on just one. And this comes back to all of us, okay? I know another election, it's coming forth and all of that. We must, the role of government is to build infrastructure. The role of government is not to hand out things. Let me say something controversial that people might find controversial forever. The role of government is, if the government is serious about agricultural development, their job is not to give out fertilizers. No. That's a misplaced priority. Their job is to develop a system through which an average farmer can actually access fertilizer and affordable, or a system or supporting systems that empower people to be able to produce fertilizer. So many people produce fertilizer that creates competition, not one company monopolizing the whole idea. Because when you create competition, the price, it becomes affordable. You remember when telecommunication came, they were charging per minute. They were charging per minute. I'm not sure if most of us are aware of them. So if you call for 1 minute, 2 seconds, they charge you for 2 minutes. But because of the competition, Glo came. So yeah, we're going to be charging per seconds. And that changed the whole paradigm. And then later, another one came. So the role of government is to put in place policies and put in place infrastructure that empowers people. For instance, let me give examples. For instance, so one of the young guys I know also that is trying to do well, that is Shei Potato, that focus on just potato productions for instance, let's assume the government comes into every local government and put in place processing hub, or collaborate with other companies to establish processing hubs all around, whereby people can come and process their own. This one want to process chip, this one want to do this, this one want to do that. Or they create a mechanism that make it easier for people to establish soil testing labs all across that can make things available. Government must invest in building, supporting, and empowering systems. And that's not what we call for a lot of time. Because government investment need to be directed into building, supporting, and empowering systems that empower people, not that give handouts. No, they empower, they're truly empowered. And we need to be calling on government for that. We need to be able to articulate it clearly, what we're looking for, what we are asking for. Yeah, I'm almost late for another thing. So how do you unlock agricultural potentials, right? Invest in input, in systems that make input available. One of the input farmers need is water, irrigation systems, right? How do we make it accessible? How do we make it affordable? How do we make it? Because that's necessary for productivity. That's how we unleash potential in productivity. Credit is another one. It's necessary for growth. Making credit available. How do we develop reliable credit system whereby an average young person can access credit to do farming, not the one that they use and go and use to buy Lamborghini? No. Market. Access to market. That's the third piece that is necessary for profitability. We unlock those potentials by investment. So opportunities exist across these three. The same way, government investing across these three as well in a way that make access to markets easy, whether it's in terms of road infrastructure, whether it's in terms of stability in the pricing system, whether in terms of credit as well, not the way we have right now, whereby you have to know a politician to access credit through CBN. No, it's something that is transparent and available to everyday Nigerian. Anyway, thank you. If you have questions for me, if you want to connect, that's my email right there. I'm very late for another meeting. I would love to take 1 or 2 questions if there are any questions before I close for today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cornelius. That was a lovely session. I very much appreciate. I learned a lot of things. I do believe that everybody else also learned one or two things. If you have questions for Mr. Cornelius, um, please leave them in the in-call message, and then I'll attend to that. I'm currently seeing one. Mr. Ojo Emmanuel said, please, where's the email? The email is on the slides that he's presenting. Cornelius@farmweller.com. Oh, he has also dropped it in the in-call message as well, Mr. Ojo Emmanuel. Miss Becky Fayodeka said, my question borders on collaboration.
Yeah, I'll be glad. Can you expatiate on that, Becky? What's the question on the collaboration? Because that's a key one.
Sir, Miss Becky Fayodeka. Hello, Miss Becky.
Hello, can I speak?
Yes, you
Yes,
can.
please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for the lecture. When you talk about collaboration, these days we find people who are not truthful to their parts of their agreements. How do we get credible collaborators?
That's a very good question. So maybe this is another point that I should have mentioned as well. So one of the there are some things you can plan for, and there's something you can't plan for. So the key element on collaborations is you want things defined from the beginning. So one of the major challenges with collaboration is assumptions. It's also whereby things are not well defined from the beginning. So if you want to collaborate with someone, a key set you really want to learn is defining all the details of what the collaboration is all about from the beginning. Specifics. So defining that as much as possible, it's one of the way to guide against the issue of the credible collaborations. If there's money involved, when do we get this money? How? Put not in informal way, but in a very formal way. So one thing I've also observed in my own dealings, in my own interaction with people, is that in Nigeria we tend to generalize rather than being specific. For instance, let me give you an example now. If we say, oh, how far is somewhere? We say, oh, it's not far. Okay, that's how far it is. Is it 2 kilometers? Is it 5 minutes drive? Is it so? And that attitude find its way into our business dealings. So as a professional, and as you develop your business, one skill set you want to learn is how to be specific. Be as specific as possible. So in collaborations, putting that in place will help with having credible collaborations. Now, if things are specifics, then you can defend things. And now, I'm not saying that's going to guide against the mistakes of running into maybe people that are not honest and all of that. But here's one thing you will find out. If you are somebody who like to define things from the beginning, somebody who is not honest will actually run away, because they wouldn't want to sign something that is not specific. So the more specific you are, the more that actually help you to weed, unserious people or unreliable people out of your collaboration systems. So to me, that's just one tip I could share on that. There's also so much to learn on how do you work with people, how do you develop credible collaboration systems and all of that. I'll be happy to maybe share some links later on specific things you can learn more. Yeah. I see a question here. I could take one or two more questions before I go. Mr. Ojo Emmanuel say, I work as an agric extension in Osun State. The state has over 413 peasant farmers. What practical method can we use to solve problems of low productivity, access to loan, and improve seed and machineries? Okay, so that questions, I might need you to help me expatiate a little bit more. Is he as an individual that want to start a business, or from the perspective of a government, or just as a concerned citizen? Because the answers to it will be different for any of those things. Mr. Ojo Emmanuel, can you hear me?
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, thank you. Like I said, I work as an extension officer, and looking at the prospects of agriculture in the state, I think I heard you talking about the lack of tractors. I work across at least 13 local governments in the state, and as I'm a field worker, I'm not sure I've seen up to 3 or 4 tractors across, at least as far as I've gone. And knowing that, okay, these are the problems, these are the challenges why Nigeria, at least some of the challenges why Nigeria is not able to meet up with our counterparts around the world. We know of machineries, lack of machineries, lack of improved qualities, seeds and inputs, and farmers are always complaining that they don't have money, to do farming and all that. So I'm asking, as an extension officer who serves as an intermediary between the farmers and stakeholders and cooperative bodies, what advice would you give? Because almost people at this time, people really want to invest in agriculture. You go to companies and they would say they want this, they want this, they want this. I don't know. So I would just want to ask, what advice can you give as an extension officer, and then also to farmers who really want to who want to bridge the gap, who knows, okay, there's a problem. I'm interested in getting machinery. For example, you mentioned a load tractor. I at the point I read out to them that, okay, can we do this and this and this? But at the long run, everything still boils down to the financial capacity. I believe you get my question. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. I will just attempt. So you asking for my advice to you as an extension officer, and my advice to farmers. To you as an extension officer, and I believe you when you say you have only seen 4 tractors across 13 local government. I believe you. There's a farm we wanted to put up in somewhere in Obokun local government. I had to give up when I have to go to Ife to be able to get tractor there. It's frustrating. But that's the business. So my advice to you, do you want us to start a tractor sharing business? Maybe that's an opportunity. You already have thousands and thousands of farmers that are ready to pay for this service. So let's think around business model around it, right? In a way that is localized. To me, that's the advice. How do we make a business case out of that? Making a business case out of that. You already occupy a special position whereby you already have connections with farmers. You already know where they are. You already know their needs. So which means it's easier for us to make a business case out of it. To me, I believe agricultural development in Africa as a whole, not just Nigeria, in Africa as a whole, is going to be driven not by government, but by small companies, small-scale companies addressing these challenges, rising up to them. And that's what I was talking about with the yellow tractor idea, that in southwestern part of Nigeria alone, we need like 200 yellow tractor kind of company, unique, that becomes a competition. That's how we solve that problem. So my advice, somebody like you, let's think of who can collaborate in starting something that address that problem, that make a business case out of it. So to farmers, yeah, farmers can use cooperative for better things. So what do I mean? An average tractor You can still get tractor for something between 6 and 10 million naira. Farmers can develop it into cooperatives, 20, 30 people, collaborate, invest together, and develop a mechanism through which they can buy tractor that can serve all of them through cooperatives. Instead of using cooperative to buy fridge, using cooperative to buy car, using cooperative to buy stuff, that same cooperative systems can be used to buy something that unleash potential of their farms, like a tractor. And let me put it this way: it is not every farm that needs tractor. There are a lot of small tools that can make a lot of difference in terms of the productivity of farms. A lot of small tools. For instance, we
Yes,
with Farmwella, we
I just
like
want to call you. I didn't see you on the call earlier, and
oh, sorry, Mr. Solomon, are you talking to me?
no, sorry.
Yeah. So there are a number of small tools that can make a lot of difference in the life of farmers, beyond just 6 million, 7 million, 10 million tractors. There are a number of small 500,000, 700,000 small tools that can still make a lot of difference. But farmers need to start using the power of cooperative to solve this problem themselves. And individuals like you and I need to start also collaborating together in making business case out of these challenges. I don't know if I answer your question, but yeah.
Yes, thank you so much, sir.
And please, if you can send your email, I'd love to connect with you. You are in Osun State. We have some farms in Osun State. Maybe there are things we could do together.
All right, I will drop it in the chat box now. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for your session, Dr. Cornelius. Thank you very much. We very much appreciate it. And everyone that has a question, one or two question, can also reach out to Mr. Cornelius. Sorry, Dr. Cornelius. I'm very sorry, sir. Can reach out to Dr. Cornelius via his email, and I'm very sure that he will be very much willing to respond to them. His email is in the in-call message as cornelius@farmwella.com. Once again, thank you very much for your session. It was wonderful. It was insightful. It was packed with a lot of actionable and insightful information. Thank you very much once again. However, Mr. Lale, I'll be handing over to you to